Have you ever wondered why some of the world's most famous car brands simply disappeared? There was a time when their names were everywhere. Their commercials dominated television. Their logos filled highways, racetracks, and dealerships from coast to coast. Families proudly parked them in their driveways. Teenagers dreamed of owning them. Engineers considered them masterpieces of innovation. Then, almost without warning, they were gone. Some collapsed because they refused to adapt. Others became victims of economic recessions, corporate politics, changing consumer tastes, or simply bad timing. A few were decades ahead of their time, creating revolutionary cars the world wasn't yet ready to embrace. Today, we'll explore the incredible rise and heartbreaking fall of some of the most legendary automobile brands in history. Their stories are filled with ambition, innovation, success, scandal, and unforgettable machines that continue to capture the imagination of collectors around the world. Because while the badges may have disappeared from new car dealerships, their legacy continues to live on every time one of these classics cruises down the road. Let's begin with one of America's greatest luxury brands, Packard. If you asked someone in the 1920s what the finest automobile in America was, many wouldn't have answered Cadillac. They would have answered Packard. Founded in Warren, Ohio, in 1899, Packard quickly established itself as the gold standard of luxury automobiles. Its slogan, "Ask the man who owns one," became one of the most successful advertising campaigns in automotive history. Packard wasn't interested in building inexpensive transportation. It built automobiles for presidents, movie stars, business magnates, and royalty. Its vehicles were known for their whisper-quiet engines, handcrafted interiors, and extraordinary attention to detail. Owning a Packard wasn't simply a purchase, it was a statement of prestige. During World War II, the company shifted much of its production to military engines, earning tremendous respect for its contribution to the war effort. But after the war, the automotive landscape changed dramatically. General Motors introduced flashy annual redesigns. Cadillac invested heavily in marketing. Packard struggled to keep pace. Its controversial merger with Studebaker in 1954 only accelerated its decline. Instead of saving both companies, the merger weakened them. Production ended in 1958. One of America's most prestigious luxury brands quietly disappeared. Today, beautifully restored Packards routinely sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, reminding collectors of what was once considered the pinnacle of American engineering. Another legendary manufacturer suffered a remarkably similar fate. Studebaker. Few people realize that Studebaker began not as an automobile company, but as a wagon manufacturer in 1852. Long before gasoline engines existed, Studebaker wagons carried pioneers westward across America. When automobiles emerged, the company successfully reinvented itself. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, Studebaker became known for bold styling and engineering innovation. Perhaps its most famous creation arrived in 1953. The Studebaker Starliner. Designed by Raymond Loewy and his talented team, many automotive historians still consider it one of the most beautiful American cars ever built. Later came the Avanti. With its fiberglass body, aircraft-inspired dashboard, and futuristic design, it looked unlike anything else on the road. Unfortunately, beauty alone couldn't solve financial problems. Studebaker lacked the manufacturing scale of Detroit's Big Three. As larger companies engaged in price wars, Studebaker simply couldn't compete. Production ended in 1966. Yet decades later, the Avanti continues to appear on lists of the greatest automotive designs ever created. Then came a brand that almost every American remembers, Pontiac. For much of the 20th century, Pontiac represented excitement, performance, youth, power. Founded in 1926 as part of General Motors, Pontiac spent years producing reliable family vehicles. But everything changed during the 1960s. A young engineer named John DeLorean transformed Pontiac into America's performance division. His greatest achievement? The Pontiac GTO. Often credited as the very first muscle car, the GTO changed the automotive industry forever. Suddenly, ordinary family coupes could be equipped with massive V8 engines capable of incredible performance. The GTO became an instant sensation. Soon came the Firebird. the Trans Am. The Grand Prix. Pontiac wasn't simply selling transportation, it was selling excitement. By the 1970s and 1980s, the black and gold Trans Am had become an American icon, thanks in part to films like Smokey and the Bandit. But changing fuel prices, stricter emissions regulations, and shifting consumer demand gradually weakened Pontiac's identity. As SUVs became more popular, Pontiac struggled to define its place inside General Motors. Following the financial crisis of 2008, GM entered bankruptcy protection. To survive, it eliminated several divisions. Pontiac became one of the casualties. In 2010, production officially ended. Millions still remember the famous slogan, "We build excitement." Ironically, that excitement never truly disappeared. It simply became nostalgia. Another victim of corporate restructuring was Oldsmobile. Founded in 1897, Oldsmobile was one of America's oldest automobile manufacturers. It pioneered assembly line production years before Henry Ford perfected his moving assembly line. For generations, owning an Oldsmobile represented success. The Cutlass became one of America's best-selling cars during the 1970s. The Tornado introduced revolutionary front-wheel drive technology. Oldsmobile engineers constantly experimented with innovation. Yet by the 1990s, the brand had developed an unfortunate image. Many younger buyers viewed Oldsmobile as a car for their grandparents. General Motors attempted several marketing campaigns to modernize the brand. One memorable slogan declared, "This is not your father's Oldsmobile." Despite improved vehicles, public perception proved difficult to change. Sales continued declining. In 2004, after more than a century, Oldsmobile disappeared forever. Ironically, many collectors now seek exactly the models younger buyers once ignored. History has a funny way of changing opinions. Speaking of forgotten legends, few automotive stories are more fascinating than that of Plymouth. Created by Chrysler in 1928, Plymouth became famous for delivering dependable transportation at affordable prices. For decades, millions of American families owned one. But Plymouth also produced genuine legends: the Roadrunner, the GTX, the Superbird, especially the Superbird. With its enormous rear wing and pointed aerodynamic nose, it looked more like a race car than a family automobile. It dominated mass car competition. Today, surviving Superbirds sell for astonishing prices. Some exceed $500,000. Yet during the late 1990s, Plymouth had lost its identity. Most of its vehicles closely resembled Dodge models. Customers became confused. Why buy a Plymouth when an almost identical Dodge sat beside it? Chrysler ultimately answered that question itself. It discontinued Plymouth in 2001. One of America's oldest brands simply faded away. Of course, not every fallen brand disappeared because it became outdated. Some were simply ahead of their time. Consider Saturn. When General Motors introduced Saturn in 1985, executives believed it would revolutionize the American automobile industry. Saturn dealerships operated differently. Prices were fixed. Salespeople avoided aggressive negotiation. Plastic body panels resisted dents. Customer satisfaction reached extraordinary levels. Owners proudly joined Saturn clubs. Annual homecoming events attracted thousands. The little compact cars developed an almost cult-like following. Unfortunately, Saturn never expanded beyond small economy cars quickly enough. Internal competition within General Motors limited its independence. As the company entered financial crisis in 2009, Saturn became another casualty. Many former owners still describe Saturn as one of the friendliest automotive brands America ever produced. Perhaps no automotive story captures the imagination quite like DeLorean. John DeLorean had already become an industry legend while leading Pontiac's muscle car revolution. Then he made an extraordinary decision. He left General Motors to build his own sports car. The DeLorean DMC-12 looked like something from the future. Stainless steel body panels, gull-wing doors, sharp futuristic styling. It instantly became one of the most recognizable cars ever built. Unfortunately, appearances couldn't overcome production delays, quality problems, and financial troubles. In 1982, John DeLorean became embroiled in a highly publicized FBI drug trafficking sting operation. Although he was later acquitted because of government entrapment, the damage was irreversible. The company collapsed. Only about 9,000 DeLoreans were ever produced. Then something remarkable happened. A few years later, Hollywood transformed failure into immortality. When Marty McFly used a DeLorean as a time machine in Back to the Future, the car became one of cinema's greatest icons. A company that failed spectacularly created one of the most recognizable automobiles in history. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of all. But DeLorean wasn't the only company whose dreams were cut short. Nearly 40 years before the DeLorean, another visionary tried to revolutionize the automobile industry. His name was Preston Tucker. In the years immediately following World War II, Americans were eager for new cars. The major automakers were still producing updated versions of pre-war designs, but Tucker believed drivers deserved something radically different. His answer was the 1948 Tucker 48, often called the Torpedo. It looked like it had arrived from the future. The car featured a padded dashboard to reduce injuries during crashes, a pop-out windshield designed to protect passengers in an accident, a rear-mounted engine, and a distinctive third headlight that turned with the steering wheel to illuminate curbs at night. Today, these features seem ordinary. In 1948, they were revolutionary. Unfortunately, innovation wasn't enough. Tucker faced enormous financial challenges, production delays, government investigations, and constant pressure from larger competitors. Although he was eventually acquitted of fraud charges, the legal battle destroyed public confidence. Only 51 Tucker automobiles were ever completed. Today, surviving examples routinely sell for more than $1 million. Sometimes history rewards vision long after the dreamer is gone. Another company that once challenged Detroit was American Motors Corporation, better known simply as AMC. Created in 1954 through the merger of Nash and Hudson, AMC was the underdog among America's major automakers. Instead of competing head-to-head with General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, AMC focused on smaller, more economical vehicles. During the fuel crises of the 1970s, that strategy suddenly looked brilliant. The compact Gremlin became one of America's most recognizable small cars. The Pacer, with its unusually wide body and enormous glass windows, looked unlike anything else on the road. Some loved it, others laughed at it. Either way, everyone remembered it. AMC's greatest success, however, came from a vehicle that continues to influence the industry today, the Jeep Cherokee. After AMC acquired Jeep, the company introduced the XJ Cherokee in 1984. Lightweight, comfortable, and practical, it helped define what we now recognize as the modern SUV. Ironically, Jeep became so valuable that Chrysler purchased AMC primarily to obtain the Jeep brand. AMC disappeared in 1988. Jeep survived. Well, AMC is a new, modern SUV, and this is the world's biggest character. Sometimes one great idea outlives the company that created it. Another beloved American brand met a quieter end. Mercury. Introduced by Ford in 1938, Mercury occupied the middle ground between affordable Ford models and logistics Lincolns. It offered extra comfort without the premium price. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Mercury enjoyed tremendous success. Models like the Cougar and Marauder developed loyal followings. The Cougar, in particular, combined elegant styling with muscle car performance. Yet, as decades passed, Mercury struggled to define itself. Its vehicles increasingly resembled Ford models with different badges. Customers began asking a simple question: why pay more for a Mercury when a nearly identical Ford sat next door? Ford executives couldn't provide a convincing answer. In 2011, Mercury quietly disappeared after 17 years. Many enthusiasts still believe the Cougar deserved the future. Unfortunately, the marketplace disagreed. Across the Atlantic, another respected manufacturer faced his own uphill battle: Saab. Originally founded in Sweden as an aircraft manufacturer, Saab entered the automotive world after World War II. Its aviation heritage influenced everything it built. Saab automobiles emphasized safety, aerodynamic efficiency, and intelligent engineering. Ignitions were famously located between the front seats, windshields wrapped dramatically around the cabin. Turbocharged engines became a Saab specialty long before they became common elsewhere. Owners often describe themselves not simply as customers but as members of a community. Driving a Saab suggested individuality. You didn't choose a Saab because everyone else did. You chose one because nobody else did. Yet uniqueness could become a disadvantage in an industry driven by enormous production volumes. General Motors purchased controlling interest in Saab during the 1990s, hoping to strengthen the brand. Instead, many enthusiasts felt Saab gradually lost the engineering independence that made it special. Sales declined. Financial problems mounted. Production ended in 2011. Today, Saab owners proudly maintain their cars, determined to preserve a brand unlike any other. Then there's Hummer. Few brands experienced such a dramatic rise and fall in such a short period. Inspired by the military Humvee used during the Gulf War, the civilian Hummer H1 became a symbol of strength and excess. Movie stars sought them, professional athletes loved them, they looked unstoppable. Later came the H2 and H3, bringing Hummer styling to a wider audience. But as fuel prices climbed and environmental concerns grew, massive SUVs suddenly became less fashionable. What had once represented power began to symbolize wastefulness. During General Motors' bankruptcy restructuring, Hummer became another casualty. Production stopped in 2010. Yet the story didn't end there. Years later, General Motors revived Hummer, not as a gasoline-powered monster, but as a fully electric supertruck. Sometimes brands don't truly disappear. They reinvent themselves. The automotive world is full of second chances. Not every famous name vanished forever. Some came incredibly close. Cadillac nearly lost its reputation during the 1980s. Porsche struggled financially during the early 1990s. Volkswagen endured multiple crises. Even Chrysler faced bankruptcy more than once. Their survival reminds us that history isn't always written in advance. Sometimes, one brilliant product, one bold decision, or one courageous leader changes everything. Looking back at all these stories, certain patterns begin to emerge. Very few brands failed because they built terrible cars. Many produced outstanding automobiles. Packard built luxury masterpieces. Pontiac created legendary muscle cars. Saab engineered some of the safest vehicles on the road. Studebaker designed timeless classics. DeLorean built an unforgettable icon. Their downfall often came from forces beyond the vehicles themselves: economic recessions, corporate mergers, changing fuel prices, poor management decisions, confusing marketing, shifting consumer tastes. The automobile industry is one of the most competitive businesses on earth. Even companies with decades of success can disappear astonishingly quickly. And yet, something remarkable happens after these brands die. Their cars often become more valuable than ever. Collectors spend years searching for pristine examples. Museums proudly display them. Auction prices continue climbing. Why? Because every classic automobile tells a story, not just about engineering, but about the people who designed it, built it, drove it, dreamed about it. Every Packard reflects an era when luxury meant craftsmanship. Every GTO reminds us of America's muscle car revolution. Every Tucker celebrates fearless innovation. Every DeLorean represents impossible ambition. These machines become rolling time capsules. They preserve moments in history that would otherwise disappear. Perhaps that's why automotive enthusiasts gather at car shows every weekend. They're not simply admiring polished chrome and powerful engines. They're preserving memories. Parents introduce children to the cars they once owned. Grandparents point toward models they learned to drive in. Stories are shared. Photographs are taken. Engines roar back to life. For a few hours, brands that vanished decades ago feel alive once again. The rise and fall of these companies teaches us something far beyond automobiles. Success is never guaranteed. Even industry leaders can stumble. Innovation alone doesn't always ensure survival. Neither does popularity. Markets change, technology evolves, consumer preferences shift. The companies that survive are often those willing to adapt without forgetting what made them special in the first place. Yet perhaps the greatest lesson is this: failure doesn't always erase greatness. Packard may no longer build automobiles, but its reputation for excellence remains legendary. Pontiac may have disappeared from dealerships, but the GTO still inspires enthusiasts around the world. DeLorean produced only one model, yet millions instantly recognize it. Tucker built just 51 cars, yet its innovations influenced generations of automotive safety. These companies may have closed their factory doors, but they never disappeared from history. Because true legends aren't measured by how long they survive, they're measured by how deeply they inspire. Every time a restored Studebaker rolls onto a show field, every time a Superbird's massive wing catches the sunlight, every time the stainless steel body of a DeLorean glimmers at a car meet, every time the unmistakable rumble of a Pontiac GTO echoes down a quiet street, we're reminded that some names never really die. They simply become classics. So the next time you spot one of these rare automobiles at a cruise night, museum, or local car show, take a moment to appreciate it. You're not just looking at an old car. You're looking at the dream of thousands of engineers, designers, assembly workers, racers, and visionaries who believed they could build something extraordinary. Some succeeded beyond imagination. Others failed spectacularly. But together they created the rich automotive history we continue to celebrate today. If you enjoyed this journey through automotive history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more documentaries about classic cars, forgotten brands, American history, and nostalgia, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story from the good old days. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Which discontinued car brand do you wish was still around today? Would you bring back Pontiac, Packard, Saab, Oldsmobile, Mercury, Plymouth, Saturn, or another forgotten legend? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching. And remember, while companies may disappear, true legends never go out of style.